I will eat my hat if you have not heard the saying, laughter is the best medicine. And I'm already chuckling at myself because it's kind of silly how often I say, I will eat my hat. Number one, that's kind of a ridiculous saying and it's old. And number two, I don't even wear hats. I don't think they look good on me. Anyway, laughter is so powerful. It changes the biochemistry in our body. I am going to link in the show notes the episode I did with Kathy Nesbitt about laughter yoga. And now we're kind of taking it a different way because we tell ourselves too often that we aren't that funny or that we could never make it, but anybody could be funny. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Mind Your Midlife, your go-to resource for confidence and success, one thought at a time. Unlike most advice out there, we believe that simply telling you to believe in yourself or change your habits isn't enough to wake up excited about life or feel truly confident in your body. Each week, you'll gain actionable strategies and, oh my goodness, powerful insights to stop feeling stuck and start loving your midlife. This is the Mind Your Midlife podcast. You are in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, somewhere around that range, most likely. And you are in a period of life where there's a lot of change. And maybe one of the things that has been on your mind during all this change is that you wonder if you could be funny. And maybe you mean it in the sense that you'd love to be funny with your friends, or maybe you mean it in a sense that you'd love to be a comedian, or you'd love to write funny things, or you'd love to be on social with comedy. And you just always thought about it. Well, now might be exactly the right time. Now, for me, I was always shy, and I still have aspects of this. And it's interesting because unless people have experienced the same thing I have, they generally don't believe me when I say this. I'm being completely 100% honest. As a kid, I was very shy one-on-one. And I was kind of always looking for a group because I'm also an extrovert and I get energy from people. Strange combo, maybe, or unusual combo. I don't know. Now, as you might guess, I have absolutely no qualms talking to a group, training a group. I do that a lot in my personal and professional life. I'm absolutely cool with large groups, but I still get shy one-on-one sometimes. And unfortunately, and you'll know this if you're similar, sometimes it comes across as being maybe not friendly, and I never want that to be the case. So one of the things that was suggested to me at one point to help me come out of my shell was to do an improv class or to learn more about comedy. And I really love the idea of making people laugh. And gosh, I'd love for my friends to weigh in and my family and tell me if this is true, but I think I do make people laugh. I love to laugh. I know how healthy it is. And if healthy plus fun, I mean, come on, how many things are healthy and fun? But I also don't want to be self-deprecating all the time. That's not good for our mindset. We've discussed that for sure in previous episodes. So I want to learn more about how does this actually work and how might you be able to dip a toe or jump all the way in to being funny. And so my guest today is Lynn Harris. She is the founder of Gold Comedy. Gold Comedy is a comedy school, professional network, and content studio where women and really everyone can grow a comedy career, can come up with kind of a creative side hustle, and can build a powerful community based around laughter and being funny. What a cool idea. Lynn founded Gold Comedy. Lynn learned when she was a teenager how funny she could be, and also realized she was often the only woman actually doing comedy in whatever scenario she was in. And so she wanted to change that for the rest of us. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, is it possible, in your opinion, for anybody who's listening to learn to be funny? I don't know if they're wanting to do stand up or they just want to be a funny person. Is it really possible for anybody to do that?
Yes, and I'll go on, but like full stop. Everyone has different styles. Everyone has different, and yes, of course, everyone has different kind of ingrained skills. Like some people are more intuitive cooks than others. Some people are more intuitive athletes than others, or with particular sports or music or whatever it is. So of course, there's a range of how easily something comes to you. We all have that with everything we do in our lives, but no one can get good at comedy without working at it. No one, not one person. Seinfeld's work ethic is famous.
Yes, correct.
No one. There is no such thing. And and this is related but not the same. People like to say that an overnight success takes about 10 years. So
Yeah.
So it all involves work. Will some of that work feel harder to some than others? Yes. But if you have the right instructor who's really, or the right, just whatever, if you're in the right environment where the people around you inspire you to like be, kind of make you funnier, like if you have really funny college friends, you get funnier,
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if your instructor is really skilled at helping you kind of uncover your natural persona, like who your persona is on stage, which is generally just kind of 1.3 times who you already are. There are some exceptions, but it's generally you. And if that same person can help you really mine your own life for material that's not funny on its face, but has comedy baked in, that has comedy available in it. It's not about like the wacky thing that happened to you, or or making fun of other people. It's like what is the sort of normal but multidimensional stuff in your life that actually is fodder for comedy. If there's someone who can help you who can mirror it back to you and help you sort of figure out what's funny about it to you, and then apply kind of universal joke mechanics, then yes, everyone can come out with some comedy. Everybody. And then what comes next is, what are your goals and how hard are you interested in working for them? If you're interested in just having fun, then that's great. And if you're interested in really working on it, then you can and you should.
Yeah.
We have a couple of people we have one woman who's a member of Gold in our community, who's a retired high school art teacher and also a retired firefighter, which I didn't know about her till the other night. I was like, Rocky, why didn't you? She did a bit about it, and I was like, how did I not? Anyway, she was one of those I've always wanted to try it people who now is doing comedy all over she's from North Carolina, and has been working so hard that she's coming to New York to do 2 solo shows of her own in September. So she's like, this is her new thing, her post-retirement, not hobby, but like thing. It's her thing. She's doing it. And for real, she is a comedian. So, and she worked at it. She 100% had like she has ease around it because she sort of was also a funny art teacher, but she also has worked very, very hard, and she's going places.
I love that. And congratulations to her. That's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Be able to do that. Okay, so you told me, and I've seen you put this in your materials and on your website, I think, that you're unleashing the power of funny women. And I love that. And I think it has a lot of layered meaning to it. So tell me some more about the power of being funny.
We like to say that comedy is power because when you make people laugh, you make people listen. And that's true of everybody, really. What's interesting, though, is that if I say to you, like, quick, think of your class clown, or if I ask AI to generate a picture of a stand-up comic, it's a dude. Always. Yeah. Now, that may be a very nice dude and a very funny dude, but it's the default setting. And it's a little bit, I don't mean to overstate, but it's a little bit like what if we unleash the power of women? I mean, just never mind the funny women.
Yeah.
Just what if we just unleash it's a way of saying, what if we
Yeah.
just unleash the power of women instead of, relegating us to dead end jobs, or under the, where we're never going to cross the glass ceiling? Or what if we actually listen to women talk? Or what if we actually treated women as full humans? It's a way of saying that, comedy isn't the only important cultural force, but it is an important cultural force. So, it shapes perceptions, and it has a hierarchy of its own, because, as we said, when you make people laugh, you make people listen. And also, it's a job and it's an industry. So it also matters that women, as in any industry, have power and voice in that industry. And because comedy is a cultural force, it matters even more, because the faces we see, the voices we hear matter.
Yeah.
And in terms of our perceptions of who has power and who should have power. So those are just a few of the layers that are baked into your very deep first question.
Well, and I knew that we could maybe dive into this a little bit, and that is why I did that. So yes, really fascinating layers there. And when you said class clown, it really kind of made me think it's so true that I bet you anybody listening to this is thinking of a kid they knew in elementary school when you say class clown, a boy kid that they knew.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking of. And then I was thinking, gosh, does that then kind of color for our whole lives who we think is funny? And I think that happens in elementary school sometimes because boys and girls develop at different rates, and the boys are kind of silly and immature, and it's not their fault. But does that then mean we think of boys as funnier for the rest of our lives? That's wild.
Yes. The answer is yes. And I'm not being flip. I don't have it in front of me, but the answer is yes. That's when the gendered differences get kind of formed and hardened.
Wow.
And it's science. You can Google it, or I'll find it later and you'll put it in the show notes. It is. And that's when, and to use just, to oversimplify with the gender binary, that's the young age, even starting as young as 6, if I'm not mistaken, is when boys start to be conditioned to be the ones to make the jokes, and girls start to be conditioned to be the ones that laugh at them.
Wow.
And it's kind of intermingled with, do boys always get rewarded for that? Not necessarily. Like, it's
Right.
often, so in fairness, it's often like the boys who are told to take it easy, when actually it's more natural and appropriate for them to be running around. I'm oversimplifying tons of.
Of course we are. Of course we are. We're speaking in stereotype. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, well, not stereotypes, but oversimplifications, I should say, of the way of the way that just the cultural messages and behaviors that become ingrained. And girls, more often than not, are, even though it seems like it's cool to be the class clown, it is not necessarily rewarded for the boys. That's what I'm just saying.
Correct.
And then, but also, many of us, those of us of a certain age or Gen X, may in fact be, even though times were changing, for sure by then, we may be old enough to remember being encouraged to, sit still and look pretty, and probably getting pretty good at it.
Yeah.
So not, unless we really fought that, or unless we just weren't in that kind of environment, we also absorbed those messages of like, that's not, I'm the audience.
Wow. I'm fascinated by that because I think you're right. And I don't think I ever sat down and thought I'm the audience, but I feel it resonates with me when you say that. Like, I feel like maybe that's how I've had interactions with people. And for me, the interesting thing is I would love to learn how to be more funny. And we're going to talk about that. And I think I am often funny, but yet I still am hearing what you're saying, that maybe I wasn't conditioned to take that role. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million exceptions and all those things, but I'm speaking, broadly speaking, those are the cultural messages that in certain environments we were raised with.
Midlife is full of choices, but you don't have to navigate them alone. That's why I created the Midlife Pivot community on Patreon. For $9 a month, the Midlife Momentum Collective gives you bonus guest interviews, live monthly workshops with me, weekly wisdom and tapping practices to keep you inspired and help you actually make decisions that you love. And if you're ready for deeper change, the Midlife Breakthrough Experience includes a private coaching call with me every single month. Join us at patreon.com/mindyourmidlife and start creating the clarity and confidence you deserve right now. Yeah, and if we take another layer to this unleashing our power, I'm also thinking that in order to be funny, whether it's a formal or just an informal setting, we have to be self-confident in the fact that whatever we're saying or doing will be funny and people will like it. So there's got to be some aspect of confidence in there, which is sort of another layer of power.
Yeah, that's true. Although the only kind of nuance I would put on that is I would not view absolute confidence in one's jokes and sense of humor as a prerequisite to taking a crack at comedy, because, for even the most seasoned comedians, we all, chestnut, even they have stage fright, even they are shy, even they are nervous. We know this, right? And also they never know how, like, one joke could destroy in one place and bomb in another. And by the way, destroy and bomb are the opposite.
Ooh.
So weird. Funny, all those violent metaphors for comedy, but whatever. Wonder who made those up? I wonder which winner runs comedy. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. And what really seasoned, what good comedy, let's put it this way, what good comedy instructors or good comedy mentors are apt to say is that you start with what's funny to you. Mm-hmm. It's not about, and your confidence shouldn't come from whether or not people like you, whether or not, and does that sound like good advice for life? But also, whether or not people liked a joke in any given moment. Yes, of course, you need to develop your jokes and tweak them and always be fiddling with them based on audience reaction in the aggregate. And yes, of course, you're doing jokes to get laughs. Duh. I mean, of course. But where you start is not, how do I please the audience? 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 It's, what do I find hilarious? And how can I make that connect with the audience such that they find it hilarious too? So confidence is, of course, part of it, but it's not like the biggest, it's honestly not don't wait for the confidence to do comedy.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing you say, though, is that it's about trusting yourself and believing that if you find something funny, then maybe somebody else will. And so there's some layer of self-confidence in there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, at least to get started, right? But again, it's like, but also doing it builds confidence. So like, the only thing I want to pull out from there is like, don't wait for the confidence to show up if you want to give it a whirl, because you get it from doing it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as you said a minute ago, life lesson, stop waiting to feel totally ready and confident before you do something.
Right.
So let's say that somebody is really wanting to try this comedy thing. And I'm going to come back and ask you about the person who kind of just wants to be funny in their life. But somebody really wants to get started in comedy. What would you recommend that they do to get started?
Well, and obviously I recommend that they check out Gold Comedy, but before that, but in general, in anywhere, I recommend that they find a place where they feel comfortable and feel that they can be themselves. I mean, if it's a class, whatever it is, and feel that they can truly be themselves. One of the reasons that Gold exists is often, often even the best classes or open mics or whatever that are available, if they are, still tend to be, dominated by dudes, and even very nice dudes, even whatever. But if you're, 55 and, are nervous about starting this, even the nicest bunch may not feel like, okay, these are my people, right. To you. They might, but they might not. That's why it's important to find a place that where you really feel like that there's a mirror shining back to you, because not every audience, you don't have to make everyone laugh. Even the best comics not everyone is their crowd, so if they're not your crowd, that's fine. I say find your crowd, whether it meaning both your audience and your crew. And so find people who can sort of, who you feel comfortable with, who you feel like you make mistakes in front of, who you can
Yeah.
have your jokes, fall flat in front of as you develop them. For many people, that is gold comedy. And that's what we're designed to be. But that's kind of that's the secret sauce that we are going for. And specifically no bro vibe. I mean, that's why we're designed we welcome anybody and everybody, but what we don't welcome is a bro vibe. Because that's mostly what people are trying to escape. So I recommend finding a place where you feel comfortable taking a class. Taking a class is always what I recommend to people, always. It's almost any comedian you talk to is often where they got their start. The other thing I recommend is if you're not there yet, I kind of made this up based on the idea of, we all know gratitude journals. And one thing that I sometimes recommend, and I haven't thought of a cute name for it yet, you can DM me if you think of one, is things in my life that could be maybe funny one day journal. Meaning jotting down, whether it's whatever your jam is, on your notes app or on a piece of paper, on a notebook that you carry with you, like just things that happen during the day that aren't necessarily funny things. It's not like I slipped on a banana peel, but like things you notice, like the subway voice sounds weird, or just, awkwardly balancing 20, when you're walking with like 20 different bags and also putting on lipstick, or I'm just making stuff up. They're not, because they're not fully formed jokes. They're not jokes. They're just like things that you notice during the day that are either awkward or even just challenging, or could be slapstick, sure, or even just like something funny you text to your friend and you're like, wait a minute, that was kind of funny actually, but my point is mostly they don't have to be jokes yet. And, or even just like stray thoughts, like coming into the kitchen and being like, what if I just didn't do the dishes, and then just like write that down. And then later you come back to it and then you actually start writing a joke around it. No, literally what would happen. And then like, that's where the jokes would come from.
Right.
Like literally what would happen. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My point is if you are able to jot down 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 things a day that are just possibly material and not trying to be funny or looking for funny, silly things, or just things that just occur to you that you even write down with a question mark, like me with my cat, my cat literally, like I went to open my lipstick before this, I got on a Zoom with you and I noticed that when my cat knocked it off the table, all of the lipstick wound up in the top part. No, it's also because it's really hot. So like my lipstick is so hot that it just melts, so yes. Like, I don't know, it's not a joke yet, but like lipstick melted in heat, but when you go back to it, you can see patterns, you can see ideas, you can see things that like, you don't even have to write jokes yet. You could just be like, oh, if I ever wanted to write jokes, I wouldn't have to start with a blank page.
Yes. I love this idea, and I love that you are sort of likening it to a gratitude journal, because one of the things that I learned maybe last year or so is this idea of a glimmer. I don't know if you've heard the word glimmer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what you're describing is kind of like that. And so I know if you're listening, you've heard me say glimmer before, but just in case you haven't, it's the idea of looking for things in your life, little moments that make you happy, the sunrise or the whatever, the smell of something. And it trains your brain to look for more. And so that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Train your brain to look for funny or kind of odd things that happen. But what a nice light energy that is in general. And I love that.
Yep. And as with noticing glimmers, it cultivates the habit of noticing that you're noticing. Mm-hmm. Because I swear to God, and I am 100% sure that you've said this, if you don't write it down, you think you're going to remember, but you will not.
Yes.
Like you have to write it down. The only way I'm going to remember the thing about the lipstick is that we're recording this, you will, and you don't even have to be as old as we are to forget. You have to write it down. I don't care what system you use. I don't care if you use voice notes, but whatever it is. And the bar has to be for the comedy journal, which I don't want to call it that, but the bar must be very low. Otherwise you won't write anything down. The bar is just like anything that like could be a thing. And in fact, okay, I'll give you this. Gold was one of the swag items we want to make is a notebook that say on the front, there's something there. So
I love that.
Yeah, we already have pens that say, write that down. And then the notebook would say there's something there. And like, that's it. There just has to be something there. That's it.
Yes. I see how this is powerful. And then the combination of taking some sort of class and learning how to then create this into an actual joke or something that you could do with it would kind of come together.
Exactly. And yeah, because then you're doing your pre-homework.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's kind of flip it now to somebody who maybe isn't necessarily wanting to be on a stage and tell jokes and be a comedian in that way, but wants to be more funny in their interactions with people, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
work or friends or who knows what. What would be your advice to them?
Sure. Well, first of all, one thing that's a little bit of an indirect answer is just a reminder that when we say comedy, we say so many things. We might be saying stand up. We might be saying writing for late night. We might be saying writing sketch. We might be saying improv. We might be saying working for brands, working in advertising.
Mm.
3 out of 4 consumers want their brands to be funny, which is funny because actually funny, interesting because people say, I'm totally on a side note, people say it's not just because it makes their brands more entertaining. It actually, there's science about this, creates trust with a brand when a brand is funny. Because and the same is true of like funny managers and leaders. It's not just like, they crack me up. It's partly that, but it builds trust because you feel a kinship because you're in on their joke and they're in on your joke. You get each other.
Yes.
So I know a lot of comics who either on the side or as their full-time jobs, like this is what they do now, write social for brands. So like even that, I would include that in comedy. So first of all, for your listeners, if you're curious about what kind of comedy at all in any sort of professional realm might be something to explore. Oh, there's also, TV, we didn't even talk about TV writing a pilot. We have women writing their first pilots in their 50s all the time at Gold. And even selling them and having them go into production. So, so there's that. So first of all, if you're like, comedy, but I don't want to be on stage, click away from podcast. I'm like, no, stop. There's so many ways.
There's a million things. I
right.
See that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But your next question, to answer it sort of a little bit backwards, for sure, comedy skills are life skills. For sure.
Yeah.
And this is also science that learning to, training yourself, whether to be a professional or just with the skills, science helps you think faster, write sharper, read a room, listen better, all those things. So, but to turn that around the other way, some of the components of sort of being, funny in your daily life come from listening and reading the room. People think it comes from always coming up with the wisecrack, but the ones who always come up with the wisecrack are the ones who are listening and reading the room, not the ones who walked into a room writing a joke already.
Right.
So, and those wisecracks don't even always have to be hilarious. And even if it's, what I like to say is they always tell you like open a keynote with a joke, which is very iffy advice to me. Like, of course you should, but like that also makes people open keynotes with terrible jokes because they feel pressure to like write a joke. And
and then it feels awkward and weird. Yeah.
I think people need more guidance around what that means and what will work and what won't. But even just like, I don't know, in a meeting, like it often comes down to being the one who's willing to say what's so. Like if it's freezing, say it's freezing. It doesn't even have to be a joke. Like, anyone else need mittens? Like, and then people kind of relax and they connect with you, and it puts others at ease. But it comes from reading the room, not from walking in there ready to make them laugh. So it's actually, the bar is pretty low. And just the bar is just somewhere around being willing to say out loud what you think might be on other people's minds.
Yes.
People will love you if you're the one to like gently break the awkward silence or say the thing that everyone's thinking but not saying, stuff like that. So that's one thing I would kind of, even if you don't do it right away, like watch and listen for those moments, like practice reading the room. And women, honestly, I really, really try it. I do not take lightly, kind of women are better at this and just sort of do sort of lazy or oversimplified, differences between men and women. But I think it is fair to say that one of the things we are trained to do is read a room. Like the kind of the chestnut about how like, you walk into a party and you immediately know who's seeing who's flirting with whom, who's in charge, like we just know, like often, not always, we're just, it's fair to say that we're trained to do that. So my other point being, like, it's not that hard. So it's to read a room. It's just, then what are you going to say that's amusing? It doesn't have to
Right.
be funny, but amusing, and gives people, it doesn't have to be a punchline, just an observation that is likely what everyone is thinking and feeling at that moment I think a pretty safe place to start.
And maybe if that observation is made with a little bit of, I don't even know how to describe it, but just like a little bit of humor, a lighter tone or a smile or whatever, maybe that does it.
Yeah, or just thinking of, like, what's the slightly funny way I could say this? Like, instead of saying, like what I said before, okay, see, it's cold in here, but no one's saying anything. Maybe we should raise. Everyone's putting on their pashminas, and maybe we should, but we should say something. And maybe, and so instead of saying, like, is everyone else freezing? Like, okay, how can I say that with one specific word that's slightly funnier? Like, does anyone have any mittens? Like I was saying before, like, mittens is
Yeah.
funny, but it's not like a joke.
Right, right. Adding humor to what's happening.
And just thinking of, like, what's one specific word I could use that heightens this, or so little things like that. I think it's helpful also to notice, like, when you're with the people, like, notice how it feels to be with the people with whom you're your funniest, and notice, like, what kinds of jokes are you making? What gets a laugh? What's your vibe on your group chat? Like, what's your style? Are you sarcastic? Are you dry? Are you silly? What's your vibe in those spaces where you feel like you're kind of your most natural, or, if you like, funniest self? And
Mm-hmm.
just kind of notice that's how you're funny. And are there places where are there other contexts that you can find to kind of tentatively tentatively begin to apply that same kind of approach, because you already know you got it.
Yes, that's a great point. Okay, so one of the pieces of advice I've gotten before is to take an improv class. What are your thoughts
Oh
about
yeah,
that?
sure. Yep.
Yeah.
We offer improv. In fact, fun fact about Gold, she's also Gen X, actually. Our improv teacher came to us as a member. She's a SAG-AFTRA actor. She's an improv instructor, and she came to us because she wanted to try stand-up. And now she says now I'm winning awards all over Louisville, where she lives, and environs, and hosting rooms and staying up late all night. And I blame you, Lynn, because now she's a successful stand-up. Anyway, I personally feel more comfortable with stand-up and improv, but so I'm not an expert on improv, but improv does do all the things they say. Absolutely, full stop. So in terms of getting you out of your head, certainly with listening, all of the things.
Yeah.
Certainly, yeah, having to listen, having to build instead of block, all those things are, people swear by it. So I just think, my only sort of personal opinion, and this is not a dig on improv at all, so please, nobody at me. And again, when we're talking about comedy here, we're talking about all the kinds of comedy,
Right.
but there's something really, if you go back to comedy and power, there's just something interesting, and women, there's something interesting to me about stand-up and women, and the idea of being alone, not only being, being alone on a stage where people, especially men, have to listen to you.
Ah.
And if you're asking me, which you are, about, like, gender and comedy, all that stuff, women also know how to plan a team.
True.
Or we're or at least we're, to put it another way, it's fair to say that is a thing we are trained to do.
Yes.
Love improv. Everybody, please do improv. But when you're asking me about how gender fits in, I just think there's something extra juicy, not bad, about improv, but extra juicy about the power of stand-up.
Yes.
And how it runs counter to the things that, again, to oversimplify with the binary, how it runs counter to the ways that both women and men have been trained to relate
really
to themselves and each other.
Really interesting. Yeah.
But once again, I love improv.
I think she loves improv. Okay. So you've mentioned it a couple of times, but if someone is curious about what you're offering with Gold Comedy and wants to find you or connect with you, how can they do that?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's super easy. You can visit our website, goldcomedy.com, GOLD comedy. You can find us on Instagram, Gold Comedy, same thing. We're also on Facebook and TikTok. You can find, and YouTube. You can find all that easily from our home base. If you DM Here's some. If you DM me, I'm also Lynn Harris on Instagram and also Gold Comedy on Instagram. If you email me through the website or DM me on social and tell me you heard me on this podcast, we'll get you a little discount on whatever it is you want to do. We run mostly via annual membership, which includes everything, all of the classes, workshops, celebrity speaker series, open mics, just all. We also have premium classes that overlap but work a little bit differently. So depending on what you're curious about, we'll figure out some sort of 10% something for you if you tell me that you found me through this podcast.
I love it. All right. And I'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes too, so to make it easy. Okay, then the last question that I want to kind of wrap up with, because I'm always imagining somebody's listening to this while they're doing dishes or folding the laundry or driving the car or whatever. And they're not going to remember every single thing, although you can just re-listen, right? But what is oh my goodness, I really want to make sure they remember at least this one thing. What is that, in your opinion?
Everybody can be funny. You're probably already funny. You don't have to be a certain way before you get funny. You don't have to be less shy. You don't have to be more confident. You just have to be willing to recognize that there is already material, as we call it, every minute and every day of your life, and be curious about how you might turn that into comedy that is unique to you, which is really the only way you can do it.
Oh, fantastic answer. I love that. To me, it's such an empowering concept to think that we can all be funny in our own way. And I guess that sort of circles us right back around to the way we started this episode about this whole thing being empowering. So that's fantastic. Lynn, thank you so much for joining me. I have loved this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Okay, what I want you to take from this episode is absolutely what Lynn just said. Anyone can be funny, and that includes you. Yes. And I also want you to keep in mind this idea of keeping a list, a journal, a notebook, whatever you want to call it, of interesting, or maybe there's something to that kind of things that happen in your life. Whether you ever do anything with it or not, I love this idea so much because sometimes we resist the idea of a gratitude journal a little bit because we think I'm just going to be writing down the same thing every day. The sunset was beautiful. The coffee tastes good. Maybe it becomes a gratitude / funny stuff journal. And we don't want to necessarily call it that because I take her point that it's just these sort of odd little things that happen that we think maybe there's something there. So I was thinking the other day, I live in a courtyard of townhouses, and there was a new family moving in the other day, and all of us inside my house and probably inside the neighbors' houses had our noses basically pressed to the window because we noticed they weren't moving in with a moving truck. They just had a flatbed off a pickup truck and a tarp over it. And we were trying to figure out who was moving in, and we couldn't pick from the people who it was. I might write that down on my list because what would I do with it? I don't know. But when I look back, it will amuse me. And even if that's all I ever do with this list, that's powerful. We are taking the conversation further in Patreon. Lynn and I took a little bit more time to really go into detail on the how of going forward with this. So make sure that you are hanging with us in the Midlife Pivot Patreon community. It's patreon.com/mindyourmidlife. You can grab the link in the show notes. I'll see you there, and you'll get to hear the rest of that discussion. And then wherever you are listening, if you would tap the 5 stars, that would be amazing. If you're listening on Apple, if you would take a moment and give a review, those reviews help tell Apple that more people might be interested in hearing this podcast. And that is so amazing. I am thankful for every single review that comes in. And in the meantime, keep remembering, midlife is your time to slow down, notice your life, what's going on around you, what's going on in your head, and create something amazing.